I jolted awake to the sharp ping of my phone, and the metallic bite of cold espresso on my tongue. I'd poured a fresh cup 15 minutes ago, expecting silence. Instead, my lock screen lit up with a message from an unknown number. The low hum of traffic outside our suburban kitchen window thrummed through the floorboards as I set the ceramic mug down, its lip still warm against my fingertips. The text was simple: "You need to see this." Beneath it, a photo began to load. My heart pounded in time with the dishwasher's gentle churn. When the image appeared, I froze. There she was, my wife, draped across a man whose rippling torso glittered under party lights. He wore only a bow tie and dollar bills tucked into his waistband. Her laughter was caught mid-breath, and her hand curled possessively around his muscular arm. In the background, streamers and cheers told me it was Sarah's bachelorette, the stripper for fun her friend had arranged. The bitter sting of betrayal slid over my tongue, fouler than stale coffee. My gaze snapped to our wedding portrait perched nearby, our younger selves beaming beneath orchids, framed in gold filigree. I pressed a trembling fingertip against its glass. That photograph had promised forever, this one tore that promise to shreds. My mind raced. She'd told me she was flying back from Chicago today, exhausted from late-night toasts and girlish gossip. Instead, she was here, on our own Wi-Fi network, mingling with a hired entertainer. I fought the urge to fling my mug across the room. Instead, I clenched my jaw until I tasted copper and inhaled deeply, willing my pulse to slow. I tapped the photo to full screen. The man's chiseled chest gleamed. Her bright pink blouse lay draped over a chair, matching the party theme. I searched for a timestamp, June 14th, 1:02 a.m., 2 nights ago, while I'd been sleeping soundly beside an empty pillow. Anger flared, then receded into cold clarity. Stay calm. Catalog every detail. I turned back to the counter and lifted the wedding frame, studying our hopeful smiles. The frame felt heavy now, a relic of vows broken. I set it face down, then pulled my laptop toward me. My fingers worked with surprising steadiness as I downloaded the photo into a new folder labeled Evidence. The dishwasher's cycle ended with a final chime that sounded cruelly celebratory. I stood and peered out the window at the silent street, parked cars gleaming beneath street lamps, oblivious to my unraveling. My eyes drifted to the wine rack, and I resisted the temptation. No outbursts. No collapse. Clutching the folded printout of the image in one hand and the wedding frame in the other, I squared my shoulders. The late-model sedan idling at the curb reminded me that the world spun on, indifferent to my pain. I whispered to the face-down photograph, "This isn't the end. It's where I begin." I set the framed wedding photo upright beside my laptop, positioning it like a guidepost. The air in the kitchen felt charged, every element a reminder of what I'd lost and what I'd need to reclaim. I breathed in the sharp scent of coffee and let it anchor me. Then, steadying my voice, I tapped out a message, "We need to talk. Now." My finger hovered over send, and I closed my eyes for one moment, tasting determination instead of despair. When I opened them, I pressed the button, and with a soft whoosh of incoming send confirmation, I stepped toward the hallway, ready to begin the painstaking work ahead. I can still taste the sweetness of her laughter in our kitchen the night we installed those floating shelves together. She handed me the drill with a grin and said, "Just one more hole," and I obliged, even though my arms ached. When the last board clicked into place, we stood back, her hand in mine, dust motes dancing in the overhead light, and admired the neat rows of family photos, cookbooks, and that golden-framed wedding portrait we'd displayed at the center. It felt like ours, a little world built by two people who trusted each other completely. In the early days, we shared routines that felt etched in stone. Sunday mornings were sacred pancake rituals. She flipped them expertly, coaxing perfect circles, while I brewed coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Her humming drifted through the steam, and I'd pause mid-sip just to watch her joy. Thursdays meant date night. We'd trade the kids to their grandparents and head downtown for dim sum or tacos, returning home late with the city's glow still warm on our skin. But even in those glowing memories, there were tiny fissures I shrugged off. It began with her late-night calls, FaceTimes blinking onto my screen after midnight, her voice hushed, the glow of her phone casting shadows across her face. She insisted it was Sarah, venting about bridesmaid duties. I believed her because she always sounded caring and sincere. Then came the rideshare notifications on our joint account, $2.50 for a trip at 2:17 a.m. I saw the alert pop up on my phone, "Your Uber has arrived." I tapped it, then texted her, "Out late again." She replied with a single thumbs-up emoji. "Helping Sarah pack," she wrote. I closed the app, convincing myself that packing couldn't take 3 hours. On an unremarkable Tuesday, I found a crumpled cocktail napkin in my coat pocket, pink and white stripes, the logo of the club where Sarah's party had been held. "You must have dropped this there," I thought, folding it neatly and tucking it into my wallet. It stayed there for weeks. Over dinner one night, I overheard Sarah on speaker ask, "Did you get the pics from the stripper?" My wife shifted in her seat and laughed, light, carefree, but I felt my chest tighten. Sarah teased, "Don't worry, I won't show him your face." My wife's laugh sounded nervous for the first time. She waved her hand at the phone and said, "It was all in good fun." I nodded, biting into my chicken, and let it go. Still, I began recording anomalies in my leather notebook. Date, June 14th. Time, 1:02 a.m. Note, photo sent from unknown number, shows wife at bachelorette with stripper. I dated each entry and listed every detail I could remember from the image, the party lights twinkling behind her, her pink blouse shrugged off a shoulder, the glint of dollar bills sticking out of a garter belt. Next, I scrutinized our bank statements, printed out the page showing a $45 charge at Club Mirage on that same date. I circled it in red and stapled the napkin I found in my pocket to the top of the printout. Beneath them, I placed a sticky note, "Call Sarah." When I did call her, her voice on the other end was breezy. "Oh, you got my voicemail," she said. "Yeah, I sent you the photos. I thought you'd want to see how wild it was." My blood ran cold. "Photos?" I repeated. "Yeah, the stripper. Remember? We did that for laughs." She laughed again. I said nothing more and ended the call. I also noticed a change in her perfume, no longer the subtle vanilla we chose together, but something sharper, florid. One afternoon I found an empty vial of jasmine sandalwood in the bathroom trash. I held it under my nose and triggered a memory of jasmine petals, salon stylings I'd never noticed on her before. Late at night, I sat in our living room, TV off, the glow of the mantel clock the only light, and quietly accessed her email on the shared family computer. A folder titled, "Bachelorette Pics," peeked from the sidebar. I clicked it open and saw thumbnail after thumbnail, her laughing with a group, then her alone with the stripper, their faces inches apart. My hands trembled, but I kept the cursor steady as I saved each image into a locked folder on my desktop. I closed the laptop and let the silence press in. Outside, the muffled drone of traffic continued as though nothing had changed. Inside, every cherished tradition, pancakes, date nights, DIY projects, felt tinged with deceit. That wedding portrait on the shelf, once a beacon of our vows, now cast a shadow over all I'd believed. I reached out and flipped its frame face down, as if hiding it might protect what remained of my heart. Then I pointed to the napkin, the receipts, the saved photos, and made a silent vow, I would not let this betrayal erase me. Instead, I would gather every overlooked clue, every hushed laugh, every stray receipt, and build from them the firm foundation of my next chapter. The morning after I slid the bachelorette photo into my evidence folder, I woke with purpose. The wedding portrait, face down on the counter, now felt like a beacon guiding my next steps. I brewed a strong cup of coffee, its dark aroma sharpening my thoughts, and sat at the small desk in our breakfast nook. I laid out everything I'd collected, the stripper photo, rideshare printouts, cocktail napkin, bank statements, even the jasmine sandalwood vial. Each piece a shard of truth waiting to be assembled. 1. Engaging legal counsel. By 10 a.m., I was in the waiting room of Carter and Ellis Family Law, portfolio in hand. My attorney, Maria Carter, greeted me with poised confidence. In her oak-paneled office, I presented my exhibits in order, first the unnamed text with the photo, then the time-stamped rideshare receipt, the napkin from Club Mirage, and the email-saved gallery of bachelorette images. Maria scanned each with professional detachment, then closed her notebook. "This is comprehensive," she said. We'll file an engagement letter today, ensuring everything you provide falls under attorney-client privilege. Next, we'll draft petitions for temporary custody and property preservation. She explained the timeline. Today, sign retainer and privilege agreement. Within 3 days, prepare custody and support proposals. Within 1 week, file for temporary orders, including account freezes. Discovery phase, seek any additional records, such as hotel registries or text message logs. Each outlined step felt like a milestone reclaiming control. When I signed the retainer, I exhaled the tension I'd been carrying. 2. Building my support network. That afternoon, I met my brother, Daniel, at our favorite neighborhood diner. Over fries and iced tea, I spread out the printed exhibits again, walking him through each anomaly. He nodded gravely. "Let's get those home security cameras installed this weekend," he suggested. "And I can help with the metadata extraction from her phone." Later that evening, I called my longtime friend Olivia, who'd trained as a psychologist before switching careers. I asked her to help me interpret any recorded conversations for behavioral inconsistencies. She agreed, cautioning me on best practices for discrete audio capture. Between Daniel's tech skills and Olivia's behavioral insights, I felt bolstered by allies who understood both my pain and the precision required. 3. Preserving and cataloging evidence. Saturday dawned cool, and Daniel arrived with a toolbox and 2 discrete wireless cameras. We chose vantage points near the front hallway and our bedroom door, areas likely to capture any unexpected late-night visitors. He mounted each camera, ran cables through the attic, then tested the feeds on his laptop. Crisp monochrome images appeared, each stamped with date and time. Meanwhile, I backed up my wife's phone to an encrypted external drive, chat logs, photos, deleted voice messages, location history. I printed critical pages, rideshare app screenshots, hotel charges, and bound them into a presentation folder labeled Exhibits for Carter and Ellis. On my desk, I positioned the wedding portrait upright again, its gaze both comforting and resolute. I then created a master spreadsheet. Date collected. Type of evidence. Source. Storage location. Every entry had a timestamp accurate to the minute, and every file bore a checksum to prove authenticity. I placed the external drive, the original printed napkin, and the portrait under my desk in a small safe. Nothing could be lost or tampered with now. 4. Drafting formal proposals and notarization. Monday morning, I met Jenna, our colleague who worked part-time as a notary, at her office. I presented her with copies of the custody proposal Maria had drafted. Legal custody, joint decision-making, primary physical custody with me. Visitation, every other weekend, alternating holidays, with detailed pickup times. Support, temporary child support per state guidelines, and spousal support pending final division. Jenna stamped and signed each page, then notarized an asset division spreadsheet listing home equity, savings accounts, retirement funds, and personal property, my workshop tools and the mantel clock versus her jewelry collection and wardrobe. With each embossed seal, the proposals gained legal weight, transforming ink into enforceable safeguards. 5. Financial planning and asset preparation. That afternoon, I met our financial planner, Simone, at her downtown office. I handed over the asset spreadsheet and bank statements, asking for forecasts on equitable division. We discussed scenarios. Home, 50-50th split, with me retaining the marital residence due to primary custody. Retirement accounts, each keeping their own 401k and IRA balances as of filing date. Savings and investments, joint account freeze pending final decree, with monthly reviews thereafter. Simone provided a summary report, complete with tax implications and future cash flows, and forwarded it directly to Maria. I left her office feeling the weight of financial uncertainty lift, one more domain of my life secured. 6. Preparing for the hearing. By Friday, my study resembled mission control, legal emails on one screen, timelines taped to the wall, and the wedding portrait watching over my shoulder. I practiced my opening statement aloud. On June 14 at 1:02 a.m., Exhibit A, the photo from an unknown number, shows Mrs. Allen engaging in conduct she misrepresented to her spouse. My voice grew steadier with each rehearsal, the tremor of betrayal giving way to calm authority. That evening, Maria emailed me the hearing date, July 5 at 9 a.m., and asked for a final exhibit list by June 28. I updated my spreadsheet, double-checked all seals and backups, and slept for the first time in weeks without dread. Over the course of that week, each step, seeking counsel, enlisting Daniel and Olivia, preserving evidence, notarizing proposals, planning finances, and rehearsing testimony, built a foundation of resolve. The betrayal that once threatened to shatter me had become the catalyst for deliberate, measured action. I was no longer a victim adrift in shock, I was the architect of my own path to justice. And as I turned off the lights in my study that night, I felt a quiet confidence settle in my chest, knowing I was ready for the confrontation that would finally reclaim my life. I arrived at Carter and Ellis exactly at 9 a.m., heart steady beneath my suit jacket. The conference room's blinds were half-drawn, painting the table in bars of soft light. On the polished wood sat my wedding portrait, framed beneath ivory orchids, and beside it, a neat stack of exhibits. My wife entered, flanked by her attorney, shoulders hunched, eyes avoiding mine. I slid into the chair opposite her, placed the portrait at the center, and folded my hands over the folder of evidence. "Good morning," Maria Carter began, her tone businesslike. "We'll start with Exhibit A, the photo from June 14 at 1:02 a.m. She clicked her remote, and the bachelorette party image filled the screen, my wife draped over the shirtless entertainer, laughter frozen in her expression. My wife's jaw tightened. I met her gaze without anger, only calm. "That was sent to me anonymously," I said, voice even. "You told me you were in Chicago with Sarah." I let the words hang as the screen faded to the next slide. "Exhibit B," Maria continued, "are the rideshare logs confirming your return trip at 2:15 a.m., charged to your account." A printout slid across the table. My wife's attorney reached for it but hesitated. I reached forward and picked up the wedding portrait. "This photo," I said softly, "shows the day we promised forever." I turned it so she faced it squarely. "I want you to see how different trust looks now." I set the portrait on her side of the table and placed the folder beside it. Exhibit C, hotel receipts for that same night. Exhibit D, the email thread where you laughed about wild fun and sent Sarah the photos. I watched her face register each fact, denial crumbling into resignation. Her attorney cleared his throat. "We acknowledge these exhibits, Mr. Allen." My wife drew a shaky breath. Her voice came out in a whisper, "Michael, I'm sorry. I never meant." "Then let's resolve this," I said, pulling the settlement sheet toward me. "I've drafted terms based on these facts: joint custody, primary physical custody with me, and equitable property division." My pulse was calm, my purpose clear. She lifted the pen, hesitated over the first line, then signed. I followed, placing my signature with deliberate care. Maria stamped the document, and the room held a breath of silence. No tears from me, only the soft click of pen on paper and the quiet settling of resolve. As we stood, I offered my wife a nod. She looked up, eyes rimmed red, and returned it. We filed the signed agreement with Maria's assistant, then left the conference room. Outside, the late morning sun was bright, but I felt only the steady warmth of certainty. The wedding portrait remained behind, a silent witness to promises broken, and the calm justice I had exacted in their place. A week later, the court's final order arrived by mail. I sat at the kitchen table, where the first text had shattered my world, and read the judge's signature: joint legal custody, primary physical custody granted to me, biweekly visitation for her, and a fair division of our assets. Spousal support was set at a reasonable percentage of her income, and our home remained mine, with her portion placed in escrow. I felt no triumphal burst, only the quiet relief of order restored. That afternoon, I reclaimed my garage workshop. I retrieved the chisels and sandpaper I'd abandoned months ago and picked up the ornate wedding photo frame that had borne witness to both our vows and their undoing. With deliberate strokes, I stripped away its gilded finish, smoothing the wood until it gleamed raw and honest. I reshaped it into a keepsake box, lining the interior with felt and carving a simple inscription on the lid: "New Beginnings." Each curl of wood felt like reclamation, turning what had been artifice into something real. On Saturday evening, I invited friends over for a backyard barbecue, a bridge between my old life and the one I was building. Laughter rose over the scent of grilled burgers as I reacquainted myself with camaraderie. My daughter chased fireflies under string lights, her joy untainted by adult complications. In that gentle glow, I realized how essential community is to healing. Sunday morning, I launched my blog, After the Veil Falls, with a post titled, From Vows to Vision. I wrote about preserving evidence, drafting clear custody plans, and the power of small, deliberate actions. I shared the story of the wedding frame turned keepsake box, how transformation can begin in the same hands that once felt betrayal's sting. Within hours, messages poured in. Thank you for these steps, your calm strength inspires me, I'm not alone. The virtual space became a new form of solidarity. That evening, I laced up my running shoes and woke my daughter for a sunset jog around the neighborhood loop, a tradition we'd started when she first learned to walk. She skipped ahead, glancing back to make sure I was with her. We crossed the street under the pastel sky, her small hand in mine. Each footfall felt steady, each breath a testament to resilience. Back home, I placed the keepsake box on my desk, beside a framed photo of my daughter's bright grin. Inside lay her softball pin and a pressed daisy she picked that morning. The box, and everything it represented, stood as a silent promise that from betrayal's ashes, I had forged structure, purpose, and hope. And in that newfound calm, I finally felt at peace.